you got like an RV maintenance park of some sort down here. I mean, it's just more fuel on the other side, brush, RVs, and I don't know. We've already seen on the other side some brush go up. Perhaps the last water drop did some damage to that. Hopefully, we got one guy coming through. It looks like a resident. We'll see if we can talk with them really quick. Can we talk to you? Do you live in the mobile home park up there?
I've been evacuating everybody.
What have you been doing? Describe it for us.
I've been going up and down the roads making everybody leave. Well, I got one left. I need to tell the sheriff to go get him. He won't leave.
What's the scene like up there?
Several homes on fire.
Thank you, sir. Wow, that paints a good picture. Well, a bad picture, but that is very descriptive. Got a dozer down there. Here, come on, I can't go. Well, it's tremendous. Yeah, you guys can see it. So that just popped out. We just noticed that a few seconds ago. Trying to clear that brush, get a line going to hopefully, I would imagine, the strategy here. Dig a line, keep it from coming any further north to where we are. But he is just, the guy you see in there, he's just feet from the flames. Yeah, it is. I'm getting awfully close, too, to get a better idea. He is literally just a few yards away as he's continuing to get rid of the brush right there. I mean, the guy who's in that dozer right now, covered in smoke and ash, flames right nearby, as he's trying to do a fantastic job. Well, driving on the way, can I say something? Driving on the way up, we noticed but or if they were just
Hey,
let's get close.
no, you gotta give me more cable. You were cutting out here so far.
Well, what do you mean more cable?
I can't. No, I can't.
Doing a good job, Josh. Doing a good job.
All right, everybody. It looks like there's a little bit of technical issues there. Hi, everybody. Mike Page alongside the new News Now host, Pilar Arias. Yes, I had a mind cramp there. So we are covering these fires from Southern California, continuing just to burn crazy amounts right now.
Yes, and it just seems like you hear about one and it becomes major, and then you hear about another. And this one, the latest one in San Diego County, it's only 100 to 150 acres, but 2 structures have already been destroyed.
Yeah, so that's the unfortunate part there. And when we were taking a look earlier, the shot of right off the highway or right off the road there, it was pretty incredible. But you saw the bulldozers there with the crew. They're trying to make a line on it so it doesn't skip over that road and then cause other issues. But thanks to everybody joining us here on Fox News Now, part of FoxNNPhoenix.com, or either on Facebook Live as well. Let us know where you are watching from. I know we got a lot of people watching from really all over. I do want to show you this shot that we're getting in from Southern California as well, but it looks like they're just going to another area fire there. So a lot going on definitely today and the last couple days, unfortunately, when you talk about the Southern California fires. But I do want to show you what it did look like a little bit ago.
This latest one is called the Lilac Fire. Mandatory evacuations already in place in the area of West Lilac Road and Sullivan Middle School. 12 structures damaged, Mike.
Wow, so very unfortunate there, and hopefully they'll be able to get back on pace there, and hopefully it doesn't go too much. But the San Diego right there, yeah, not the best right now for them. But the biggest fire still is that Thomas fire, burning at 90,000 acres now. And when you think about it, 1 acre is a football field. So think about 90,000 football fields burning there just in Ventura County alone. And then they got the other fires I saw yesterday, Bel Air, portions of the communities there burning up. So yeah, just a sad time there, Southern California. But this is what we all know of California. When you take a shot like this is a nice shot. But
The beautiful coast.
Yes.
PCH.
We will see if we'll be able to get some more aerials here for you of these fires. All right, folks, for those of you joining us right now on Fox10Phoenix.com or Fox 10 Phoenix Facebook Live, we're taking a look here of the lilac fire in San Diego County. Right now, at least 100 acres burning right now, and portions of I-15 were quickly charred by more than 150 acres today, so destroying 2 mobile homes along the way and damaging maybe about 12 other structures there. But we're taking a look right here as we continue to provide you not only aerials but ground shots now. And you're seeing emergency crews continuing to get into the area as well. Maybe some people trying to get out here as well too. As you can see, just a lot of smoke, though, in the area. And hard to imagine, you know, if you lived in that area, what you're going through right now. And we are learning right now that some mandatory evacuations in the area of West Lilac Road and Sullivan Middle School. We told you the 2 structures being destroyed, 12 damaged at this time. Road closures continue. Old Highway 395 between West Lilac Road and Highway 76. This is just what a week it's been already here for Southern California, as fires really hitting into high gear on Monday and really going into the week here. We're already at Thursday and high winds continue.
Actually, you know what, Virginia, I started to leave, but I felt I should come back near the school, because at least the school is some kind of a buffer against the flames and the smoke where I can stand here for a little while. So Virginia, let me show you what I'm looking at. This is West Lilac Road. The cars coming toward us, I believe, are a lot of people evacuating. There are fire engines here. A couple of them are parked up there at the school. They're not actively fighting the fire. Okay. On the microphone? Okay, here I am. Test, test, test.
All right, so you're hearing the reporter there on the ground as she's communicating back to her station. And there is a mandatory evacuation in place. We're going to check in with the reporter in just a little bit as soon as they get settled here, but not quite sure why they seem to be hanging right there in the middle of the road there. Looks like the shot did freeze up there for a moment. It's going to go a little bit in and out. Someone with that live view technology can sometimes go a little bit in and out. But let's we're going to listen in and see if the reporter is settled here.
8-6. I got cut off. Do you want me on the mic, or do you...
Okay, so she's still talking to her producer there. We'll keep checking in to see if they're able to come back and maybe give us an update here. But continuing to look here, Lilac Fire, San Diego County, as we are Taking a look just at this one ground shot, but there is mandatory evacuations in the area of West Lilac Road, and that's where they're at right now. So the cars that you are seeing are fleeing the area right now.
My audio? Okay, but do I put a microphone on or do
All right, so we're just seeing from the North County Fire that all of West Lilac Road now has mandatory evacuation in place. So we're likely about to see some people rushing down this road here. This fire, called the Lilac Fire, started around 11:15 this morning, and thick smoke was seen for miles. It grew to 150 acres within an hour.
just wondering if I can listen to IFB and if you have my microphone. Backpack 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It is. Now, it's not as bad as it was a little while ago when I told you I thought I had to evacuate. It seems like maybe the tankers have gone ahead and beat back some of this. Now, look at the contrast here. The dark, dark sky with all the smoke, and I'm going to pan over here toward I-15. I'm on Lilac Road, and look at the blue sky. you wouldn't even know. You wouldn't even know it. So I'm right in front of Sullivan Middle School. To its left is Bonsall High School. And as you can see on Lilac Road, occasionally cars will be speeding by, some with horse trailers. Law enforcement and fire department keep speeding down this road, and I just heard from one of our stringers, an Anthony Carrasco, who works for us. He's said that he has come upon some houses burning down Lilac Road. I can't give you specific addresses, but he's down there and he says it's pretty bad down the road, and that's westbound. We're looking westbound. A little while ago, I could not see the house. Go ahead. Go ahead. Okay, people are getting in. Some of them are getting in and getting horses out. And Jason, if that's you, a little while ago, I saw horses at this house right over here. Then I couldn't see them because of the thick black smoke, and now I don't know where they. Oh no, I see them over there. They're still there. They're in their stall. So you know what? There properties out here with animals and with horses, and I'm sure people are just beginning to hear about this and want to get home, but I don't know how people are going to get down all the way down on Lilac Road. So again, I'm in front of Bonsall High School and Sullivan Middle School. The wind is whipping out here. I mean, I guess you can probably see from the video the contrast between the smoke here and the palm trees, and it's bad. I have a colleague going over to see the parents who are picking up their children from a community center. The children are safely out of both schools. They were evacuated immediately before the fire advanced. And again, to the left of my screen is an avocado field. It was on fire when I drove by it a little while ago. Yes. You know, it's kind of eerie down here, Virginia. I can hear the fire alarms going off at the school. And I just lost you. I can't hear you any longer, so I'll try to reestablish communication with you.
Well, just look how everything changed within the last 3 minutes there during that live shot for that photographer or reporter there, Pilar, where, boy, it was, it's getting bad out there. Now we got somebody talk to you. Let's listen in.
I'm Fallbrook.
Are you worried?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, I worry.
Do you have people down there, animals, anybody left at the house?
Yes, 2 cats.
What are you going to do?
I'm going home and see what I can do it. Yeah, I would like to get home like soon.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Right now might be a moment of shock for people. It seems like they're not quite sure what to do, even with these evacuations underway here in this area, San Diego County. Right now burning at 150 acres, and you know that probably number will go up. It's near a school as well, and students being evacuated as well too. The East Valley Community Center, Bonsall High School students being evacuated too. So this is just a raw video that we're getting in for you. That's why the The shot sometimes goes a little bit in and out, and but boy, last 5 minutes, everything changed right there real quick there for folks living in this area.
Yeah, Mike, we're told this started as a brush fire. 2 buildings have already been destroyed, 12 damaged, and those are in a mobile home park, we're being told.
Yeah, so unfortunately, 2 homes already destroyed there. Mobile homes, 12 are heavily damaged at this hour, and you really got to think the timing on this just horrible. It's never good for something like this to happen, but when you're just a couple of weeks away from Christmas, there it's a tragic time for these people, not only here in San Diego County, but really all of much of Southern California.
Yeah, the local reporter out there just mentioned that an avocado field that they just drove past was on fire. And for those people unfamiliar with Southern California, avocados are a huge part of their commerce, their economy. So you think about loss of life and property, unfortunately, with these fires, and you have, that sort of impact as well.
Yes. And look how fast those winds are really whipping. You can tell by the palm trees there. Look how they're swaying, and the palm leaves there. Really, wow. Okay. So heavy wind there, and we've known that this is going to happen all week. Southern California getting those strong winds, and it's not helping the situation at all with this massive wildfires throughout Southern California. They are expecting it now to go into the weekend with these strong winds. That's exactly what the people don't want to hear there, but definitely when you take a look at just how fast the smoke is moving, I mean, that kind of tells you how fast these embers are flying off pieces of buildings onto others, and that's how it's sparking all of these fires. Very dry conditions there, not a good recipe, and unfortunately for the people here in this community are needing to flee, and you're seeing some first responders here in the area as well. I think it's just going to be a matter of time before they tell this photographer that they're going to need to leave too. But you're taking a look here live as
It's gotten dark very quickly.
yeah, look at that. I mean, just within the last 30 seconds again. So it's getting darker and darker. We're going to listen in just a little bit, see if this reporter or photographer, look at this, on a motorcycle coming out of nowhere really through the fields there, trying to get any way they can out of here. But it looked like that person was just going the wrong way too. I mean, it looks like they're going into the fire.
Is in your screen to the left. As I pan over to the right, that is Sullivan Middle School. The schools were evacuated safely. The children have been taken out. They're getting notification to their parents. I'll tell you, when I rolled up, the last person there was the custodian. He had a mask on. He was blocking the school. He told me he just wanted to stay there until everybody was out, and I believe only 1 staff member's up at the school. I'm going to point you down Lilac Road here. This is West Lilac Road. This is where the bulk of the smoke is from where I'm standing. It's coming out of the north and going northwest down the road, and then you get swirls, and then I can't tell which direction it's coming from. I haven't seen the tankers here for a while. The firefighting aircraft from Ramona, they've been doing multiple low-level drops over here, and I haven't seen them for a little while. So right now, steady smoke, steady wind, people evacuating. As you've been watching my picture, you saw people with their horse trailers. I stopped a woman just a few minutes ago and I said, I don't think it's safe for you to go down there. But she said she wanted to get her 2 cats. So this is the human part of it. People want to get home. These are gorgeous homes down here on property where you can have horses and animals, and it's heartbreaking. People can't get back down here. It's not safe. It's not safe right now. And again, the wind's coming up again.
All right, and you could definitely hear those winds whipping, and that's really the major story out of all of these fires that we've been seeing the last couple days here in Southern California. Take a look at that image there, right there, as these wind gusts have been recorded at 40 to 50 miles per hour in the area, according to the National Weather Service. When wind speeds are above 30 to 35, pilots assisting with aerial water drops will have the discretion of where to fly. That's from the CAL FIRE Captain John Hagee. Hagee says that they're also issuing airdrops becoming less effective when the wind is picking up this much, because you might want to drop it in one area, but really just trails off by the time it gets to the ground there. CAL FIRE sent some resources to Los Angeles to battle a series of devastating wildfires, but kept some equipment in San Diego to cover flare-ups like this. So we're just seeing some of these situations continuing to pile up here for everybody in this area, Southern California as well.
And now North County Fire is tweeting that a secondary fire has been confirmed at San Luis Rey Track and Training Center. That is at 3+ acres. So this is an additional fire in Southern California.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think that's going to be the norm here for the next couple of days, where we're going to see these little sparks fly, and who knows who else, what other communities might get hit too. With these strong winds, these embers could really go anywhere. So we'll continue to monitor this for you, and if we have any more updates, of course, we'll pass them along to you.
Right across the school. And here we got a CAL FIRE. There are lots of fire engines who are coming up and down and staging, but none of them are actively fighting fire at the school. It's just close. And there's a fuel truck there which will be there to fuel the fire trucks. Okay, I've got a flotilla here. They're the inmates coming in. These are inmates who are specially trained to fight fires. La Cima 2, La Cima 3, they're pulling, and La Cima 1. They are inmates who pay their debt to society by fighting fires, and here they are pulling up. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. Out will come all of these people who have the picks, the rakes. They do the grunt work, they do the heavy groundwork, and they clear brush. They're really the unsung heroes who come in and start mopping up these fires. But for right now, they're building fire breaks. So they're going to strategize right now, figure out where they have to go. But boy, I'm glad to see them. They need them right now. They need them in this area right now. So we'll see if they're going to move on down the road. I'm listening. Go ahead. That's right. Some of this is hand work, and they get in there with these tools and they dig at the brush and they clear it and they move along in a line, and they're really amazing. I mean, these guys are great. I'm so glad to see them here. And again, I'm calling them inmates because they go to a fire camp to pay their debt to society, and boy, times like this, it's great to have them.
All right, everybody, we are going to switch away from Southern California if we do get some more updates. The last update that we got, it was 175 acres. Jumped 25 acres by the time we brought this to you. So we're going to continue on here with News and Now. Once again, Pilar Arias, the newest member of News and Now, as we continue to watch for feeds really all over the country. But while we were on break earlier today, President Trump met with some of the congressional members, including Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer from the Democratic side, and then there was, of course, Mitch McConnell. And there was Paul Ryan. They're all in the Oval Office. Now, a lot of people wondering, will there be a government shutdown? That's what a lot of people want to discuss right now, and it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, we're getting so close to the holidays, and people just want to know. It's the anticipation.
Yes. So we're going to show you now President Trump at the White House with those congressional members. It's sort of short, only about 2 minutes.
A unified group. It's a well-knit together group of people, and we hope that we're going to make some great progress for our country. I think that will happen, and we appreciate it very much. And Chuck, Nancy, would you say anything? Like to say anything? Chuck?
Well, we hope we can come to an agreement. Funding the government is extremely important, helping our soldiers is very important, and helping average citizens is very important. So we're here in the spirit of let's get it done.
Thank you, Mr. President, for this opportunity. We are here to make progress. We have some important issues that we share with you. As you have described the opioid crisis in our country, we want to address that, help our veterans, S-CHIP, our children's health insurance, and again, all things that have bipartisan support in the Congress.
Very good. Thank you, Nancy, very much. Mitch?
Mr. President, we're here to reach a bipartisan agreement to finish out the year, and glad that you invited us and happy to be here.
Thank you very much. Paul?
Glad we're here to resume conversations.
Mike, you have anything?
One sentence.
I'm grateful for the leaders of both political parties. This is a time of great opportunity in this country. We're seeing growth at home, but we have many challenges abroad, many challenges facing the American people. And I'm more confident than ever, Mr. President, with your leadership and with the good faith of all the people in this room that before this Christmas we'll produce real results for the American people that'll make America stronger and more prosperous.
Well, thank you very much. I thought that with what's going on in the world, I would bring our great military genius / person along, and maybe General Mattis could say a couple of words.
It's an honor to be here with the leaders from the Hill, sir. The #1 priority for our country is to make certain we protect this Constitution and our way of life, and we've had great bipartisan support. I'm confident we'll walk out of this with it.
I am too. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah.
Right there. So President Trump and the congressional members there, and it's a big day, especially today in the political world with Senator Al Franken stepping down. Well, not today, but he said in the coming weeks there. So we'll see when exactly that'll be.
Right, exactly. He said in the coming weeks he will resign, and that's amid sexual misconduct accusations.
Yes. All right. Now, moving along here, we saw Paul Ryan there in the meeting, but before that, he also had his weekly press conference, and let's listen in to the Speaker of the House.
The Committee on House Administration is presently holding a wide-ranging hearing on our reporting and settlement process for sexual harassment. The goal of this hearing is to take a look at the entire system. We want to identify what reforms are needed to change the way things work. In addition to just better policies to protect women, we also need a real culture change. We need to recognize that this is a pervasive problem that women face not just here in Congress, but through every industry. And this really is a watershed moment, and it needs to lead to lasting and positive change. Lastly, with the Senate's vote yesterday, it is official. We are going to a conference committee on tax reform. With this last long step, this step-by-step process that began with dozens of hearings over the course of several years, we are now on our way to getting real relief. I know people are hearing a lot of hysteria and a lot of hyperbole from opponents of this plan. All kinds of doom and gloom. None of this surprises me. The defenders of the status quo just see their old, broken system slipping away from them. We believe it's about time that hardworking people of this country get a break. We believe it's about time that people living a paycheck get some real relief. In the end, this really comes down to what people care about. More money in their paychecks, more jobs, a healthier economy, faster economic growth, more fairness, more peace of mind when tax day rolls around. That's what this is about, and it's about getting beyond the status quo. So for the people who are out there who want to just cut through all the noise, the hysteria, the hyperbole, just go to fairandsimple.gop, see for yourself what this is all about, what it is we're trying to do to improve the lives of millions and millions of hardworking Americans. Thank you. And anybody got any questions? Wong.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Leader Pelosi just a few minutes ago said Democrats will not be supporting CR providing Democratic votes. Do you have enough Republican votes to avert a shutdown?
I feel good where we are. I'll let the whip comment on whip checks and things like that. I feel good where we are. I think it's kind of just basic governing is keeping government going while we negotiate the finer details. Who are you from?
Alex Rock from BNA. I want to follow up to ask, in light of the promises President and Mitch McConnell made, do you think the Alexander Murray bill and the reinsurance software, do you think those should pass?
I won't get into the conversations they've had because I wasn't part of those conversations. I'm not deeply familiar with those conversations. Only to say that healthcare is broken. We're going to have to fix healthcare. She's put some very productive, constructive solutions on the table. Our members are looking at the same kinds of solutions. And we think the individual mandate, which is something that the Senate did repeal, should be repealed. And then in doing that, that's going to invite a new conversation about how we fix healthcare. And I think that's all productive. Christina. Yes, it is. The appropriators literally could not write one. If we try to tell the appropriators on the 7th, write an omnibus, it would be written by the staff. Members of Congress would not have a hand in writing this. And so it's too much to ask for the appropriators at this short game. Look, I was hoping we'd get this agreement done a while ago. As you know, the Democrat leaders walked away from the table. And when they walked away from the table, that cost us weeks. And in order to write an omnibus appropriation, that takes weeks to do. And you want to do it right, and you want to do it thoroughly. And that means we have to give the Appropriations Committee enough time to do that. And right now, they don't have that kind of time. Well, I'm not going to speculate on what the next moves are. We're going to start, hopefully, we're going to start this conversation back up today down at the White House. It would be nice to get back to the table and start negotiating caps and all the other things we have to do. But those conversations have not been taking place because our partners on the other side of the aisle walked away from the table. So if they come back to the table, we can start conversations, but it's going to take us some time, and we're just going to have to find time to make sure that we can accommodate all of these things. Yeah.
On that meeting, Leader Pelosi said that the president made the invitation for today's meeting and said, I assume since he invited us, he has an offer to make. Is there a counteroffer from Republicans, and has the Freedom Caucus support been secured?
We don't have, are you talking about what? Are you talking about appropriations? Are you talking about, we want to just start these conversations back up. We haven't had conversations about how to move with a caps agreement. So we just want to get these conversations started back up. In the meantime, we just need to keep the government funded while we try to get these conversations going again.
But you met with Congressman Mark Meadows yesterday.
I meet with people constantly about everything. Just leave it at that.
Will you vote for a 2ECR? Will that group vote for 2ECR?
You'll ask the whip.
Mr. Speaker, would you be open to the idea of a 22% corporate rate?
Oh, I'm not going to. You think I'm going to get into speculating what's in the conference committee and stuff? The last thing I'm going to do is get ahead of our conferees who just got named, who are just beginning to get their ducks in a row. What I'm not going to do is start speculating about what is or isn't or what I want or don't want in the conference report when the conferees, I think in the Senate, just got named last night. So it would be poor form of me to negotiate through the media on tax reform, but more importantly, to get ahead of the people that we've just delegated to go negotiate the final version of tax reform. Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, on parity, House Minority Leader Pelosi said that 54-37 is what...
I'm not going to negotiate through the media on this either.
But my question is, she seems to think that fiscal 2017
I'm going to move forward by not negotiating through the media.
Mr. Speaker, your conversations with Republicans, from what we've been told.
All right, folks, we're just going to step away for the moment. Take you out to the White House right now, where First Lady Melania Trump is reading the Polar Express to children. Let's listen in.
Coaster. The mountains turn into hills, the hills to snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren desert of ice, the great polar ice cap. Lights appeared in distance. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. There, said the conductor, it is the North Pole. The North Pole. It was a huge city standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first, we saw no elves. They are gathering at the center of the city, the conductor told us. There is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas. Who receives the first gift? We all asked. The conductor answered, he will choose one of you. Look, shouted one of the children, the elves. Outside, we saw hundreds of elves. As our train drew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to crawl. So crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no further, we stopped, and the conductor led us outside. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and pranced, ringing the silver sleigh bells that hang from their harnesses. It was a magical sound, like nothing I'd ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us and, pointing to me, said, "Let's have this fellow here." He jumped into the sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee, and he asked, "Now, what would you like for Christmas?" I knew that I could have any gift I could imagine, but the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one silver bell from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. Then he gave me a hug and told an elf to cut a bell from a reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it up to Santa. He stood, holding the bell high above him, and called out, "The first Christmas gift." A clock struck midnight as the elves roared their approval. Santa handed the bell to me, and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeers' names and cracked his whip. His team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled once above us and then disappeared in the cold, dark polar sky. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa Claus' sleigh. "Let's hurry outside and look for it," one of the children said. But the train gave a sudden lurch and started moving. We were on our way home. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What?" I yelled out. He cupped his hands around his mouth. "Merry Christmas," he shouted. The Polar Express let out loud blast from its whistle and sped away. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was the silver bell. There was a note. "Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C." I shook the bell. It made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," said my father, "it's broken." When I shaken the bell, my parents had not heard a sound. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell, but as the year passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Thought, I've grown old. The bell still rings for me, as it does for all who truly believe. Merry Christmas and joyous, happy holiday season. Thank you.
Mrs. Trump, thank you for that wonderful story. We so appreciate you being here with us today, and clearly you've brought grace and happiness and joy to the kids here as we get ready for the Christmas holidays and all the holidays. And with that in mind, I think the First Lady would like to say hello to some of the kids who are here with us today. So, yes. Mrs. Trump?
Sure.
We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings we bring to you and your kin. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Now bring us some figgy pudding. Now bring us some figgy pudding. Now bring us some figgy pudding and a cup of good cheer. We won't go until we get some. We won't go until we get some. We won't go until we get some. So bring it right here. So bring us some figgy pudding. So bring us some figgy pudding. So bring us some figgy pudding and hang it right here. Good tidings we bring to you and your king. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings we bring to you and your king. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
All right, folks, we, as the First Lady wrapping up this event, as she just read to the children, let's take it out to the House floor right now that is active.
Schedule, I'll be sure to let all members know.
House will be in order. Gentleman's correct. The House will be in order.
If there's any further changes to our schedule, I'll be sure to let all members know. I'll yield to the gentleman.
I thank the Majority Leader for yielding. Normally, of course, we would have a scheduling discussion tomorrow at the end of business, but in light of the fact that we are not meeting tomorrow, we will not have that colloquy. Can the leader give us some indication of what might be considered next week? As we know, there are numerous items that need to be resolved before we leave here this year, and we need to obviously have some BCA, the Budget Control Act numbers, arrived at so that the Appropriations Committee can move forward either on an omnibus or appropriation bills. We need to do flood insurance. We need to do FISA Section 702. We need to do, obviously, children's health insurance program and other matters. Can the leader who has just said that we will be in, is he anticipating 4 days next week? 4 days next week, and presumably 4 days or 5 the following week. So let's say we have 9 legislative days. Can the leader give us some idea of how we might accomplish the work that needs to be done in that time frame? And I yield to my friend.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I will miss the colloquy tomorrow. I do look forward to that, to always speaking with my friend. As the gentleman knows, the Rules Committee have met, so you will see financial service bill that they met upon. You will also get a list of all the suspensions. They will be at close of business tomorrow. But the gentleman is right. There is a lot of work to be done. We have passed CHIP going forward. As the gentleman knows, in this bill that we just voted on, for those who voted yes, it continued funding for them as they went through the year, for the rest of this year. And as the gentleman knows, this House has passed all 12 appropriation bills, but we have more work to get done. Now, knowing my friend is concerned coming from the Appropriations Committee as well, I'd hope you join with us. We would like the Senate to take some actions. I know our leadership has just visited with the President with both sides of the aisle. I hope we can come to an agreement so we can finish this out. I also hope the gentleman would join with me in encouraging the Senate, just not on the appropriation bills, but the 352 bills that we have out of this House sitting over there. And the part that American people must know, most of those bills have very broad bipartisan support. So I am looking forward to a busy 9 days. It will not come up next week, but if it could, I would bring it up as soon as we come out of conference, because I do believe the American people are waiting for a tax cut and a Jobs Act to continue what we've gone through, and I yield back.
I ask unanimous consent to speak out of order for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
I thank the gentleman. I hear the majority leaders hope that we'll move appropriations bills on the Senate side. Obviously, one of the things that we've been trying to work on for the last 90 days, Mr. Leader, has been trying to get to an agreement on the numbers that will replace the sequester numbers that certainly many people on your side don't want for the defense side of the budget. Obviously, we believe we had an agreement over the last 4 years for parity in spending. We would hope that we could reach an agreement similar to that agreement. And furthermore, Mr. Leader, I am sure that Mr. McConnell, the majority leader, could bring appropriation bills to the floor. He has not done that. We don't control the Senate. Those bills have not been brought to the floor. You can't pass them if they aren't brought to the floor. And furthermore, Mr. Speaker, they need to be bipartisan bills, because the history is that the majority party, Mr. Speaker, has not been able to get a majority of votes. You did today. But the history is, since 2011, that has not happened, and therefore, failing that, you need to work in a bipartisan fashion, Mr. Speaker. The Senate does, in order to get these bills done. In addition, I won't go into all the pieces of legislation that are pending that need to pass for the welfare of our country and the security of our country and the assistance to our people. So I would hope that we could proceed now. And frankly, I'm available tomorrow, Mr. Leader, and I'm sure others are, to start talking about how we reach agreement on these critical issues, because 9 days, as we all know, is not very much time. We've had 90 days. We unanimously voted for continuing CR. 90 of your members voted against it. It passed because of our...
House will be in order. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
I thank the gentleman. I say respectfully, the reason we got 90 days to hopefully reach agreement on a number of critical issues, critical to us and I think critical to you, was because every one of us on this side of the aisle voted for the CR, and 90 of your people voted against it. It could never have gotten to a majority but for our votes. So I would hope that now that we have another 2 weeks, that we start sitting down together, reaching agreement, and are prepared next week to start voting on bipartisan bills that both sides can support. Neither side will get all it wants, but that is the way I think that this House will proceed, as a credit to the House and a credit to the American people.
The gentleman yield?
I'd be glad to yield to my friend.
The gentleman is right. We have a great deal amount of work. We just voted on a bill that I will guarantee you 221 members on this side that carried it was not the bill they were seeking. They do not want to look at the troops and say they're not funded and they're not getting their pay raise that we voted on earlier. And the gentleman, my friend, has told me time and again, funding government is not a game. There was nothing in the bill that we just passed that both sides could not say that it was a bipartisan bill. There was nothing on our side of the aisle that we put into that bill that would give anybody on either side heartache. But it was not a bill that we should have to have voted on this floor. We did 12 appropriation bills. We should not be voting for continuing resolutions. That's not why we're elected. So let's do this. As we...
House will be in order.
As we make our travels back, knowing that we'll be back next week, let's make a commitment to one another. Let's make a commitment to this country that we will get our work done, that we will find the common ground, that we will not whip against a bill just to try to shut a government down, but we'll find the very best that this body could come to conclusion with. And that means funding our troops, and I look forward to working with all of you in the coming weeks, and I yield back to my friend.
Reclaiming my time, my presumption is that the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, who voted against the CR in September, did not do it because he wasn't for funding the troops, did not do it because he didn't want to protect the security of our country, did not do it because he wanted to shut down the government. I presume none of us did either. We did it because we are very concerned about the fact that 90 days ago, we voted for a CR that was non-controversial, notwithstanding the fact that 90 of your side voted against it. It was non-controversial, however. The President agreed to it. You agreed to it. I agreed to it. We had an agreement. But the fact of the matter is, we have not used those 90 days productively in a bipartisan way to get to constructive resolutions of these issues. And I agree with the gentleman. We ought to do that. And I will pledge to the gentleman that I will, and my leadership here and our members will come at least 50% of the way. You're in charge. You have the responsibility. We understand that. But as we have in the past, almost every time, whether it was Speaker Boehner or Speaker Ryan, it was this side of the aisle that kept the government open. It was this side of the aisle that made sure we didn't default on our debts. So, Mr. Leader, I want to be constructive. There's no point in further argument on this. It is to say, however, to all of us, I've talked to some of your members privately. They're shaking their head that, why are we in this position? And we ought not to be in this position. And every one of us that sits in this body, every one of us ought to be saying to ourselves, we need to act constructively. Confrontation is not constructive. The failure to reach agreement. You say you passed SCHIP. I pleaded with the gentleman not to put a partisan bill on the floor. And we had agreed on the authorizing side. Unfortunately, we couldn't agree on the funding side because you wanted to cut things we thought ought not to be cut. Clearly, we could have gotten to an agreement. In fact, you passed a bill on iPad,
how many members?
$17.6 billion unpaid for that would have paid for all of that. all of that. So, Mr. Leader, I will yield to you if you want to, yes. But I just plead with every one of the members of this body. This is not good for the American people. You say you don't want a CR? You had 90 days to come to an agreement with us or with yourselves. You have 218 votes. You just showed us. I yield to my friend.
Gentleman from California.
Not continue a debate because I know people have places to go.
Okay, everyone, we're going to switch gears here. Take you to President Trump, who earlier today signed a proclamation on Pearl Harbor Day.
133 on this side.
You look beautiful. You look beautiful, huh? So proud of you guys. You look fantastic. How are you? These are great men. Thank you for being with us. On this day, 76 years ago, more than 2,000 Americans were killed in a surprise attack on our homeland. Hundreds more were injured, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and aircraft carriers in our Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor suffered crippling losses. Everybody knows about it. America was at war. These folks know about it more than anybody. As we remember that fateful day, it's an incredible honor to be joined here with surviving veterans of the attack on Pearl Harbor. And you'll be here for the next 7 years with me, okay? All right, 7 years. After that, who knows? They're heroes and they're living witnesses to American history. All American hearts are filled with gratitude for their service, their sacrifice, and their presence here today. These veterans are World War II and very special men, are among the very first Americans to fight back in the Second World War. That's really true. When you think you're the first ones to fight back, that's something to be said. And we did okay. Once we got our act together, we did okay because we know how to win. Outnumbered and outgunned, they did not hesitate. These 6 great American patriots answered the call of history. Mickey Ganich, Jack Holder, Lawrence Perry, Robert Fernandez, George Blake, and Alexander Horozny. On that bright Sunday morning, Mickey Ganich and his shipmates were getting ready to play a game of football against the crew of the USS Arizona for the Fleet Championship. Where's Mickey? You never got that game, huh? You never got that. You better believe it. I know you won the war. I don't know about football. You won the war. When bombs... Look at you. Look at you. Look beautiful. Boy, oh boy, that's pretty... Can you do that one more time for me? I can't believe it. Boy, I'm not playing him in football. When bombs began to fall, Mickey reported to his battle station in the crow's nest of the USS Pennsylvania, wearing his football uniform and his football helmet, which he threw off because he figured he didn't need it. That's pretty great, huh? And you did a hell of a job.
Okay, everyone, we are going to be switching gears here. We have a breaking news conference out of New Mexico. Governor Susana Martinez is talking about the shooting at Aztec High School earlier today.
Jack Holder survived the enemy's attack.
Time. It just will. It will take time. But this is a small community where everyone knows everyone else. And we've got to let each other, lift those that need to be lifted and let those that need to be, need you to lean on, to be there for you. I want the people of Aztec to know that New Mexicans stand with you. Tonight at 6 p.m. at the Minion Park, there will be a candlelight vigil. I ask you all to join the families and friends, community members, to show the unity and the support for those who have lost their 2 children and for those that were hiding in closets and classrooms and teachers' offices and under desks. I cannot imagine experiencing what those kiddos and teachers and staff did today. But as I said, Chief Heel did an amazing job. And we really have to be grateful for somebody that is willing to go through a window and doors, force your way in to make sure that this is minimized while other kids are hiding to protect themselves and each other. They did an amazing job. And we're so very proud of our law enforcement folks and the first responders. I'd like to introduce at this time Sheriff Christensen, Chief Heel, and Chief Pete Casetas to come up to the podium and make a statement to you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, before law enforcement approaches the number of people behind us, I'm Kim Carpenter. I'm the CEO of San Juan County. We have a number of representatives here from multiple agencies with us, some you will hear from. To my right, your left, we have the Mr. Derek Fuller, who is the FBI Assistant Special Agent in charge. We have District Attorney Rick Tedrow. We have the Superintendent of Aztec Schools, Kirk Carpenter. We have the Mayor of Aztec, Sally Burbridge. We have the Chairman of the County Commission, Jack Fortner. We also, of course, you'll hear from Sheriff Christensen, Chief Hill, and Chief Casetas. We also have the Secretary of Children, Youth, and Family with us, Monique Jacobson. So some will be available after, who you will not hear from. I know that there will be an interview following this law enforcement press conference with Aztec Schools. But right now you're going to hear from law enforcement. Sure.
Well, good afternoon. I wish this could be in better circumstances, but one name up here that I'd like to introduce is Philip Francisco on the end. He's with Navajo Nation Police. He's the chief there, and we thank him for being here. This event just magnifies our willingness to work with each other. Unfortunately, it's the loss of life. But between the state police and the FBI and the sheriff's office and the other agencies, Farmington, Bloomfield, and Aztec, we're going to get through this thing. We're going to try to give you the facts when they become available. I know there's been a lot out there on social media and some erroneous reports that may have got out. People were misinformed. But I can tell you what we know, pretty simple. There are 3 dead, 2 of which are victims. One is the suspect. We haven't identified everyone yet and fully informed all the families, and we're not going to do that until we're absolutely sure of what we're doing. So we're not going to be giving names out today.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. I don't want there to be any question that we've not assembled the best and most capable law enforcement team to investigate this situation from beginning to end. And that's important for the families and the community. And that's why we're here. You know, when called upon by the sheriff, we've worked together for many years. We didn't hesitate. The state police will cover calls for Aztec PD as they've been out all day on this. So we'll go ahead and take care of that for the next day or so, whatever they need to support that the agency that, of course, this is in their backyard. We're responsible primarily for the crime scene, assisted by the FBI, working in conjunction with the FBI. We'll make sure and work through the first initial scene, which is the school, and that may lead to different scenes. We just don't know yet. The sheriff's very correct, and we don't have a lot of detail for you right now. There's a lot of things that we need to do associated with the investigation. I'll tell you this, the sheriff talked about his years on the department and hoping to never have to go through this. When I first became chief, if you remember, we had a situation in Roswell. It's very similar. Unfortunately, this outcome in Aztec was much more tragic. I spent some time in this community, a little over 3 years assigned to the Farmington area as a state police officer, and I know a lot of people. And I spoke to a lot of them when I got here, and it's amazing when I asked them if they were okay, how many said, you know what, I got a call from my kid in that exact school telling me that they were okay, or whispering to me on the phone, wanting to be helped and saved. And imagine that as a first responder, that going through your mind, knowing you have a job to do, but many of the officers that live in this community, the kids were going to that very school. So I'm very, very pleased at the response by the Aztec Police Department, the San Juan County Sheriff's Office, and the state police. They were very quick to get to the scene and mitigate, as the governor had said, the violence that was happening. Other than that, I've defined the state police role. We'll be here for the next few days, again, working hand in hand with the different agencies. Thank you.
I'm going to be brief also. I'm Chief Heel with the Aztec Police Department. This is a horrific event that occurred within our city, and it's something that we would hope would never occur. Our love, thoughts, prayers go out to those families who have lost 2 children in our community. It's a terrible day. I am so thankful for the men and women, the Aztec Police Department. They responded in less than a minute up there to get there and help secure the scene and do what they needed to, and I think they helped save lives up there. We have wonderful men and women. We have some other people at the schools that will come forward in the days, as the governor was telling you, a couple of heroes we have there that help save lives of those kids. And I'm assured as we go further into the investigation that additional heroes will come forward in this tragic time that we are going to be going through. We invite you all tonight to the Minium Park at 6 o'clock so that we can be there and take care of that. I am so proud of the team we have up here and the cooperation we have in law enforcement. All law enforcement agencies within this community have reached out to me to offer their help, support, officers between Farmington, Bloomfield, the Sheriff's Department was there immediately, State Police, and I know I'm going to forget somebody, so FBI. But what a wonderful group we have here that would come together and say, okay, this is what we're going to do, and they're going to make sure that it happens, and this is investigated until we get to the very bottom of everything. And I assure you, nothing will be spared until we get to the bottom of exactly what happened. Thank you.
We're going to wrap up this press conference for this time, and I'm sure there will be something coming forward. But as far as questions, we don't really have any further information to report. Obviously, we want to be able to provide you the information when we're able to obtain it. But this is an ongoing investigation. At this point in time, there will not be really any information to disperse other than what has been informed to you by this group. I want to thank everybody for being here, and we will make sure that we keep everybody posted on forthcoming information and or press releases or conferences. Thank you. We will actually hear from, I think we can go ahead and hear from Aztec Municipal Schools. Superintendent Carpenter.
Obviously a tough day. I think everything's been said. It's amazing to see people come together in such a tragedy. And, you know, at schools, our primary rule, obviously, and primary job is to educate students and keep them safe. And when you have something like this, it hits you in the heart. But in this, I think it's been said, we had several people at the schools. We obviously do drills, and you hope that nothing ever happens at a school. But when it does, it's reaction. And our staff, even substitutes, reacted in a way and honestly saved a lot of lives. But to sit up here and tell you that it doesn't hurt, we lost lives. But to see the way people came together, the response from the law enforcement and this community is amazing. And it's just starting, because obviously there's a lot of healing that has to take place. And will have to take place for a long time. It's in times like this that you feel violated because of the way schools are set up. Those are places where we send our kids to be safe. And they still are safe places, but sometimes evil intrudes on that. But I will tell you that we have a lot of great people in our community, the first responders. We have a lot of great people at our schools that did the right thing. And we will help our community mend. Thoughts and prayers are obviously, I should say, out to the families that lost their children today. And we lost children as well, because we are one big family in Aztec. And we will start the mending process. But we have a long road ahead of us, but we are Aztec, and we will get through this, and we will get through it together. And we just appreciate everybody. Like I said, we worked through drills and things, and we put together plans today, and it came together. And we appreciate all these men and women behind us, the Secretary of Education, the Governor, everybody coming together, because that's what New Mexico is all about. So I think that's probably all I have to say. But again, I want to thank all of our staff at that high school, that once things started, they did what they needed to, and they saved a lot of lives up there. Thank you.
There's been a lot of people that have reached out, both locally, regionally, and nationally. The number one thing we've told people is just pray. A lot of hurt. But I think at this time we are going to go ahead and bring Chief Casetas forward with our Sheriff, Ken Christensen, back to the podium.
So, as far as the investigation goes, I know you have a lot of questions from your reporter seat in the community. We can't answer detailed questions because, one, either we're not in the position to or we don't have that information. We understand if you have some general questions, we can field a few of those. So feel free to ask. Oh, sorry.
Is the shooter from the student?
Don't know that. We haven't confirmed it yet, Nancy.
Can you tell us how the shooter died? Self-inflicted or as a result of your efforts?
If you can, try to repeat the question. We do not have a field mic.
Sorry again, sir. What was that
question?
question?
Can you tell us how the shooter died?
For those of you just joining us, this is the press conference regarding the latest on the investigation into a high school shooting in Aztec, New Mexico.
Everybody heard that.
This is the northwest corner of the state near the Navajo Nation. The closest big city is Farmington.
We're just going to hold back because let's let the crime scene people work.
Let's continue to listen.
That's an important factor, as I said. But you're asking specifics, and I get it. But I would err if I made a judgment and then the crime scene came back differently. We'll know more tomorrow, definitely, on that. Lizzie?
Can you just start with when did the calls, what time did the calls start
Good.
coming in? Who was calling students, teachers? What were they reporting?
I think the initial call came in shortly after 8 o'clock. I don't have all the times yet, but it was shortly after 8 o'clock. Class was in session.
The initial call came into the Aztec Police Department, correct, Chief? And the chief to the dispatch center. Yeah, exactly. Aztec Police were dispatched. They responded initially, and of course made immediate entry into the school to mitigate the situation. How they did that exactly, I can't go into detail because we're working through those interviews of those officers that were responding. But it did start rolling or unfolding a little bit after 8 o'clock. We can tell you that we believe the students were in class at the time. Class was in session.
Chief, you mentioned some cases of bravery. Can you talk a little bit about, the governor mentioned bravery. Can you give us any more details on that?
I can tell you that there were individuals early on that we heard had taken action there, and we're working through those interviews. If I started to list that out, third or fourth hand information, I may get it wrong. I think that's all going to come out in the next couple of days.
Yeah. The chief mentioned that law enforcement responded within less than a minute. Can you elaborate on that?
Chief?
Call came in, and the officers that were responding, there was 4 of us that responded from my department. The first 2 got there checking with dispatch center in a minute or less.
To the school?
To the school.
I want to make it clear, too, early on there was reported that there were multiple injuries. We can say with all certainty that there were no other injuries to any students or faculty at that school. We know that we have 3 individuals that are dead.
Do you know what type of weapon was used?
Do not yet right now.
So the governor mentioned, Chief Fields, about you're going through a window. Did you go through a window to get into the school? She said that when she was making her presentation. And by the way, praising you.
You get that, or do you want to?
You can if you want.
No, go ahead.
We were able to make entry into the school through a window in the door, yes.
So to elaborate a little more, too, is the school goes on lockdown, correct? So no one can get in or out. The police have to get in, and that's how they made entry. one of the ways that they made entry to get into the school.
Any other rumors that you can dispel? We heard that there may have been multiple with guns.
Rumor, not true.
Okay, that's any other
Thank you.
rumors like that you can.
I don't know. I would be guessing if I knew all the rumors, but yeah, that's a good one. It's no indication.
Go ahead.
I just want to confirm there are no injuries other than the 3 individuals
Yes,
who are dead.
exactly.
Okay.
Hey, can you talk about the victims, male, female? Are they students?
I can't. I'm not in a position to right now. We want to make sure that the families are all notified and we exactly know who and what we're dealing with, Nancy. So that's a little difficult right now. We're a bit removed from the scene and we're waiting for that information to be confirmed. I know there's been some discussion with media, with students. I'd say it's all speculation right now until you get a formal release from the PIOs on exact names and identifiers of who was involved. I can't stop you from reporting on that, but right now law enforcement is not in a position to confirm it. Jose, you had a question?
Just the shooter, male or female?
I don't know yet. I think it's safe to say the shooter's male. I can give you that. Yes, ma'am?
I heard another student had been taken into custody after the event.
Not that I'm aware of.
Did the shooting begin in the classroom or in the halls?
Okay, everyone, Mike and I are going to take you to the biggest political news of the day. Senator Al Franken announced that he will be resigning in a couple weeks.
Yeah, so that big announcement was live on the U.S. Senate floor this morning, and it was big news because a lot of his colleagues were telling him that he needed to do this, including the minority leader there on the floor, Chuck Schumer.
Right, so it started with about 6 colleagues, and at the end of the night last night, it was in the 30s?
Yes, so it got up to the 30s there, and then obviously when you get to that amount of pressure, it's pretty hard to stay in there.
So we should just probably listen to his comments.
Yes, there we go.
Set that the Ethics Committee was the right venue for these allegations to be heard and investigated and evaluated on their merits. That I was prepared to cooperate fully and that I was confident in the outcome. You know, an important part of the conversation we've been having the last few months has been about how men abuse their power and privilege to hurt women. I am proud that during my time in the Senate, I have used my power to be a champion of women, and that I have earned a reputation as someone who respects the women I work alongside every day. I know there's been a very different picture of me painted over the last few weeks, but I know who I really am. Serving in the United States Senate has been the great honor of my life. I know in my heart that nothing I have done as a senator, nothing, has brought this honor on this institution. And I am confident that the Ethics Committee would agree. Nevertheless, today I am announcing that in the coming weeks, I will be resigning as a member of the United States Senate. I, of all people, am aware that there is some irony in the fact that I am leaving while a man who has bragged on tape about his history of sexual assault sits in the Oval Office, and a man who has repeatedly preyed on young girls campaigns for the Senate with the full support of his party. But this decision is not about me. It's about the people of Minnesota. And it's become clear that I can't both pursue the Ethics Committee process and at the same time remain an effective senator for them. Let me be clear. I may be resigning my seat, but I am not giving up my voice. I will continue to stand up for the things I believe in as a citizen and as an activist. But Minnesotans deserve a senator who can focus with all her energy on addressing the challenges they face every day. There is a big part of me that will always regret having to walk away from this job with so much work left to be done. But I have faith that the work will continue because I have faith in the people who have helped me do it. I have faith in the dedicated, funny, selfless, brilliant young men and women on my staff. They have so much more to contribute to our country. And I hope that, as disappointed as they may feel today, everyone who has worked for me knows how much I admire and respect them. I have faith in my colleagues, especially my senior senator, Amy Klobuchar. I would not have been able to do this job without her guidance and wisdom. And I have faith, or at least hope, that members of this Senate will find the political courage necessary to keep asking the tough questions, hold this administration accountable, and stand up for the truth. I have faith in the activists who organized to help me win my first campaign and who have kept on organizing to help fight for the people who needed us. Kids facing bullying, seniors worried about the price of prescription drugs, Native Americans who have been overlooked for far too long, working people who have been taking it on the chin for a generation, everyone in the middle class, and everyone aspiring to join it. I have faith in the proud legacy of progressive advocacy that I have had the privilege to be a part of. I think I've probably repeated these words 10,000 times over the years. Paul Wellstone's famous quote, "The future belongs to those who are passionate and work hard." It's still true. It will always be true. And most of all, I have faith in Minnesota. A big part of this job is going around the state and listening to what people need from Washington. But more often than not, when I'm home, I am blown away by how much Minnesota has to offer the entire country and the entire world. The people I've had the honor of representing are brilliant and creative and hardworking, and whoever holds this seat next will inherit the challenge I've enjoyed for the last 8.5 years, being as good as the people you serve. This has been a tough few weeks for me, but I am a very, very lucky man. I have a beautiful, healthy family that I love and that loves me very much. I'm going to be just fine. I'd just like to end with one last thing. I did not grow up wanting to be a politician. I came to this relatively late in life. I had to learn a lot on the fly. It wasn't easy and it wasn't always fun. And I'm not just talking about today. This is a hard thing to do with your life. There are a lot of long hours and late nights and hard lessons. And there is no guarantee that all your work and sacrifice will ever pay off. I won my first election by 312 votes. Could have easily gone the other way. And even when you win, progress is far from inevitable. Paul Wellstone spent his whole life working for mental health parity, and it didn't pass until 6 years after Paul died. This year, a lot of people who didn't grow up imagining that they'd ever get involved in politics have done just that. They've gone to their first protest march or made their first call to a member of Congress, or maybe even taken the leap and put their names on a ballot for the first time. It can be such a rush to look around a room full of people ready to fight alongside you, to feel that energy, to imagine that better things are possible. But you too will experience setbacks and defeats and disappointments. There will be days when you will wonder whether it's worth it. What I want you to know is that even today, even on the worst day of my political life, I feel like it's all been worth it. Politics, Paul Wellstone told us, is about the improvement of people's lives. I know that the work I've been able to do has improved people's lives. I would do it all over again in a heartbeat. For a decade now, every time I would get tired or discouraged or frustrated, I would think about the people I was doing this for and would get me back up on my feet. I know the same will be true for everyone who decides to pursue a politics that is about improving people's lives. And I hope you know that I will be fighting alongside you every step of the way. With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Senator Al Franken. And welcome everyone here to News Now. We are live here for you where Senator Al Franken just has resigned. He said in the coming weeks he will resign. You hear in the background our very own Ron Hoon, who is just wrapping up on AZAM. All right, everybody, welcome here back to News and Now as we continue to take feeds from really all over the country. And that was one of the big stories of the day with the Senator Al Franken making his resignation there known. So in a couple of weeks, we'll know. But we are getting some breaking news in from one of our own congressmen here in Arizona. AP is reporting that the 8-term Republican Representative Trent Franks of the great state here of Arizona is resigning. And that's all that's being said right now.
Yeah, we don't have any additional information as to how or why or how soon, but we're definitely going to stay on top of that for you all and let you know when we know.
Yes. All right. So let's take it now back out to the White House for an earlier event today where President Trump. There we go.
You look beautiful. You look beautiful, huh? So proud of you guys. You look fantastic. How are you? These are great men. Thank you for being with us. On this day, 76 years ago, more than 2,000 Americans were killed in a surprise attack on our homeland. Hundreds more were injured, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and aircraft carriers in our Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor suffered crippling losses. Everybody knows about it. America was at war. These folks know about it more than anybody. As we remember that fateful day, it's an incredible honor to be joined here with surviving veterans of the attack on Pearl Harbor. And you'll be here for the next 7 years with me, okay? All right, 7 years. After that, who knows? They're heroes and they're living witnesses to American history. All American hearts are filled with gratitude for their service, their sacrifice, and their presence here today. These veterans are World War II and very special men, are among the very first Americans to fight back in the Second World War. That's really true. When you think you're the first ones to fight back, that's something to be said. And we did okay. Once we got our act together, we did okay because we know how to win. Outnumbered and outgunned, they did not hesitate. These 6 great American patriots answered the call of history.
Mickey Ganich, Jack Holder, Lawrence Perry, Robert Fernandez, George Blake, and Alexander Horozny. On that bright Sunday morning, Mickey Ganich and his shipmates were getting ready to play a game of football against the crew of the USS Arizona for the Fleet Championship. Where's Mickey? You never got that game, huh? You never got that. You better believe it. I know you won the war. I don't know about football. You won the war. When bombs. Look at you. Look at you. Look beautiful. Boy, oh boy, that's pretty. Can you do that one more time for me? I can't believe it. Boy, I'm not playing him in football. When bombs began to fall, Mickey reported to his battle station in the crow's nest of the USS Pennsylvania, wearing his football uniform and his football helmet, which he threw off because he figured he didn't need it. That's pretty great, huh? And you did a hell of a job. You saw something that few people have ever witnessed before, right? Right. Amazing. Thanks, Mickey. Jack Holder. Jack. Hi, Jack. Jack Holder survived the enemy's attack on Ford Island and went on to fly dozens of missions in the battles of Midway and all along the Solomon Islands. Thank you, Jack, for being here. Appreciate it. Very brave guy. Lawrence Perry carried ammunition to the gunners, and thinking about the lessons of Pearl Harbor, Larry said he hopes we can build up the military again. We are building up the military beyond what you ever thought. It got depleted. You know what happened over the last quite a long period of time, but not with us. Our budget's now going to be higher than ever before. We're building it up again, and we'll do it in your honor, okay? We're building it up, the best equipment in the world. We make it, and we're supplying it in very big numbers. Thanks. And we're doing a job. Robert Fernandez. Robert? Yes. Nice seeing you, Robert. Served on the USS Curtis that delivered return fire against the enemy, and he really gave it to them pretty good. They were very successful at the return fire. Good job. You look like you're about 50 years old. Huh? You must have been very young. You look great. What is the age?
93 now.
93? Well, you look great. George Blake stood watch on the Hawaiian shores, ready to repulse a feared invasion. George, thank you, George. Good. It was pretty wild scene. You'll never forget that, right?
I've never forgotten.
Nope, you haven't, and you fought hard. Alexander Horozny enlisted in the Army when he was only 17. Alex served throughout the war, but if you tried to call him a hero, he'd tell you he was just a regular grunt in the service. That's what he told us, a regular grunt. I don't think so. Thank you. Yeah, I know it is. You're not a regular anything. You're a hero. You're a hero. All of you are heroes. In the weeks and months that took place after the surprise attack, and that was a vicious surprise attack, millions of American patriots like these men answered the same call and went to war. They fought, they bled, they sacrificed, and they triumphed. Many died to defend America against our enemies and to defeat the enemies of all humanity. The legacy of that legendary American generation is carved deep into the stone monuments of history, across the battlefields, oceans, and harrowing skies of Europe and the Pacific throughout the war. One great battle cry could be heard by American friends and foes alike. Remember Pearl Harbor. Have you heard that before a couple of times? Remember Pearl Harbor.
Remember Pearl Harbor as we go to meet the foe. Just remember Pearl Harbor as we did the Alamo. We shall always remember how they died for liberty. Just remember Pearl Harbor and go on to victory.
Yeah. What can I say? Wow, that was good. He's a very shy person, too. And a great football player. Today, our entire nation pauses to remember Pearl Harbor. and the brave warriors who on that day stood tall and fought for America. As I signed the proclamation making this National Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, I ask that God continue to bless and watch over each of you as very, very special people to our country. And God is watching over you, and we appreciate it. Thank you. Our surviving World War II veterans are a precious national treasure. So I'm going to sign this proclamation, and we're going to, I see there's one pen, but we're going to get plenty of other pens and other things for you guys so you remember this day. And again, we'll do it for another 7 years. Okay, 7 years. And you all have to promise you're going to be around, right? We're going to be around. We're going to be around. We're going to be together. Okay? Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's sign the proclamation. Thank you. That was so great. It was like you really made this very exciting. Some free entertainment, right? Okay, this is National Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day 2017. And we've got pins for everybody. Great men. What do you think? How's the penmanship? Okay? Right? It's okay? Thank you, everybody. That was great. See you next year, okay? Oh, I thought he gave it to him. I thought he gave it to him. That's okay. I'll see you next year. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. See you all next year.
I'm not sure what this will count.
That's right.
Yes, sir. That's right. I've got a hat for you to sign for me.
I'll do that.
You gave me a hat, but you never signed it. So I brought it with me.
I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to bring them into the Oval Office. We're going to take some pictures of the Oval Office. All right? You know the Oval Office, right? So we're going to go to the Oval Office. Okay, good idea, Mike? We're going to do that right now. Come on. Thank you, everybody.
Mr. President, any comment on Senator Al Franken?
All right, thanks, everybody. The rest of the world to cover, don't we?
Well, I still have some questions.
Okay. Okay, a couple things I'd like to start out with right now. First, I'd like to mention our co-hosting of a global forum on asset recovery and the run-up to International Anti-Corruption Day. As a part of a U.S. government-wide effort to combat corruption around the world, the United States co-hosted the inaugural Global Forum on Asset Recovery earlier this week at the World Bank in Washington. This major international event, which took place in the immediate run-up to the global commemoration of International Anti-Corruption Day, was co-hosted by the United Kingdom. In a signal of U.S. commitment to this cause, our top law enforcement official, Attorney General Jeff Sessions, took part in the forum. The forum's goal was to facilitate the continued recovery of stolen assets from 4 focus countries: Nigeria, Sri Lanka, Tunisia, and Ukraine. The United States will remain committed to fighting corruption internationally by building partner nations' capacity to investigate and prosecute graft, by cooperating with foreign partners to trace and recover public assets stolen by kleptocratic regimes, and by strengthening institutions to prevent corruption. Second matter is that Secretary Tillerson, as you all know, is still on his Europe travel. Yesterday, Secretary Tillerson continued his engagements in Brussels, participating in the NATO-Georgia Commission meeting and the North Atlantic Council Foreign Ministerial. He also held meetings with his British and Turkish counterparts. In the meetings, the Secretary once again reaffirmed the United States' ironclad commitment to our NATO allies and the security of Europe, and he welcomed the growing number of NATO allies who are meeting their burden-sharing commitments. If you haven't done so already, I'd suggest you review the transcript of the Secretary's press conference at NATO. Today in Vienna, Secretary Tillerson participated in the OSCE ministerial and highlighted ways to deepen cooperation on regional and global security challenges. He once again called for the full restoration of Ukraine's territorial integrity through the implementation of the Minsk agreements and reiterated the United States' commitment to seeing the peninsula return to Ukrainian control. The Secretary also held individual meetings with his Swedish, Austrian, Russian, and Ukrainian counterparts, as well as with the OSCE Secretary General Thomas Greminger. Finally, Secretary Tillerson will round out his trip tomorrow in Paris, where he will meet with senior foreign French officials to discuss deep cooperation on a range of global, regional, bilateral issues of mutual concern. And with that, I'd be happy to take your questions. But I think our acting assistant secretary handled everything that we're going to cover on Israel and the president's decision today.
Really? Because I'm more confused than I was before we started. I don't understand what the practical implications of this recognition are. It sounds to me from what Ambassador Satterfield said or didn't say in a very, very careful way that there are no practical implications as it relates to day-to-day diplomacy or operations of the consulate and embassy, and that what you have in fact done, or what the president has done, has recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, but not recognized what Jerusalem actually is. In fact, Ambassador Satterfield wasn't even able to say that you believe that Jerusalem is in Israel. It might as well be an amorphous blob that just shows up on kind of a map if you're not willing to talk about the specifics of what that actually means, what you mean when you say Jerusalem. And I'd just like to know, what is Jerusalem in Israel?
We recognize Jerusalem as the capital.
That is not my question.
We recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. I'm not going to go on and excuse me, let me finish,
Okay.
and continue to answer the same things that he just answered for 20 minutes or so for all of you. There are some questions that you will rightfully have about passports, for example, about maps. Some of those things we are still working out. You will have questions about what happens with our consulate and our embassy. Some of those things we will still be working out. So I'm not going to have all the answers for you that you're looking today, but I think the president and his announcement was clear, and I think the assistant secretary
Very
is
easy
fair.
question to answer. When President Trump visited the Middle East, and he went to the Western Wall and prayed, what country was he in?
I'm sure you think this is very cute, but
I don't think it's very
look,
cute. I think that you guys don't understand. I don't understand what it means to say that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel without saying what you believe Jerusalem to be.
Well, I think it also recognizes that the center of government is there and has been there since the founding of Israel.
That's absolutely 100% factual and correct. What country was the president in when he prayed at the Western Wall? What country was he
Some
in?
of these things, okay, perhaps, and we're not taking any position on the overall boundaries. We are recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Perhaps that's not enough of an answer that you are looking for, but I can assure you that an entire administration backed by the entire interagency process, which included not just the White House, but the Department of Defense, the Department of State, the National Security Council, the entire interagency process. Okay, you may think you're smarter than them, Matt Lee, but the entire interagency process fed into this, made its recommendations, and the president made his decision.
The entire interagency process appears to have come up with something that means absolutely nothing.
Matt, that is your opinion. That is your opinion,
Well,
but the president announced his policy, and we are pushing ahead with that policy.
Okay.
So go ahead.
That actually touches myself and my family and others and so
I
on.
understand.
Because on our passports, where it says place of birth, country of birth, it says Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we don't have a country to say, I was born in Jordan or I was born in Palestine. The Palestinians of a certain age are not allowed to state Palestine as their place of birth on their American passport. So what they should do, how will they handle such an issue?
Yeah, and
myself included.
That is a fair question. As you well know, this policy was just announced yesterday. Okay. We all like to get ahead of ourselves and ask a lot of questions that are complex, of course, that is understandable. A lot of these are part of the interagency discussions. Lawyers have to weigh in. A lot of government officials have to weigh in. And some of this stuff is just frankly still being worked out. At this time, I can tell you there are no changes to our current practices regarding the place of birth on consular reports of birth abroad and also U.S. passports. The decision, we believe, will ultimately rest with the president. Okay.
So do you think that given that it's still being worked out,
Does the Secretary feel
on the issue of passports, you mean?
And other aspects of this, including what is Israel, what is Jerusalem exactly? But is
the capital of Israel? I think we established that.
Oh my gosh,
Okay.
thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done now. Does the Secretary feel
attorney's fees for the police officers, attorney's fees awarded against the sheriffs, attorney's fees against our law enforcement officers for trying to keep us safe, for trying to enforce our state laws? Now, we've got two opportunities to stop this. One is in the U.S. Senate. I already spoke to one senator who was absolutely dumbfounded and amazed that such legislation would even be introduced. After more than 2 centuries of the history of the United States, somebody would put in a bill to try to extinguish the state concealed carry laws all across the country and give other people who wouldn't have the right to get a gun in your state the right to come there. And this after some of the worst firearms massacres and disasters in our history. The Las Vegas attack, which led to the deaths of 59 of our countrymen and countrywomen. The attack in Sutherland Springs in Texas, which killed dozens of people. The gun violence has even come here to Washington and to the Capitol and to the members of Congress ourselves, and still we haven't done anything. We don't take up a universal criminal background check to close the internet loophole, to close the private sale loophole, people selling guns in the parking lot at 7-Eleven. So we close the loopholes that make us an absolute outlier in terms of the civilized world. We don't take that up. We don't take up legislation to ban military-style assault weapons like the ones that were used in Newtown, Connecticut to assassinate 20 school children at point-blank range. We don't take up that legislation. We don't even take up the legislation that they promised we thought that they wanted to do, which was to get rid of the bump stocks. No, that faded away too. Instead, they bring us this proposal to drive us deeper into the cycles of gun violence and misery that the NRA and the GOP have taken us to in America. So, 2 opportunities to stop this madness. One in the United States Senate. But the other is this. The pretended champions of the U.S. Constitution are violating the Constitution. They're trampling the Constitution. Why? Well, the Congress of the United States is an institution with limited enumerated powers. We don't have the right to do whatever we want as Congress. We have to exercise a real power. Well, what power is being exercised here? Well, there's only a couple of possible candidates. One, they say we're regulating commerce, but that's patently absurd. There's no commerce that's being regulated in any way at all. Doesn't say anything about business, doesn't say anything about money. There's no commerce. And the Supreme Court authority is very clear about that. That's why the Supreme Court struck down the Gun-Free School Zones Act, which my friends across the aisle were totally opposed to. And they said, well, that's got nothing to do with commerce. The possession of a gun within a school zone, it's got nothing to do with commerce. You got to strike it down. Well, equally, the possession of your concealed carry weapon has nothing to do with commerce either. So that doesn't help them. Well, then they would say, well, really what we're doing is we are vindicating the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment gives you the right to do it. Well, there's a couple odd things about that. One is that if the Second Amendment gave you the right to take a concealed carry gun anywhere you want in the country, why has no court ever said that? And why aren't they just bringing a lawsuit? Because the federal courts across the land have been overwhelmingly clear that the Second Amendment does not give you a right to carry a loaded concealed gun. You don't get that right under the Second Amendment. If you have that right, you get it from your state government. And I thought that was something that my friends across the aisle believed in. Federalism and state powers and state rights. But no, they would say here, well, this is an enforcement of the Second Amendment, I suppose. The Supreme Court also struck down that bit of trickery in a case called City of Bernie versus Flores, which dealt with the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. And there, Congress said, overwhelmingly, I think it was unanimous, Congress said, we are going to overrule, essentially, the laws of the states and say that any burden on people's religious free exercise is presumptively unconstitutional unless you can show that there's a compelling interest in your state against it. And the Supreme Court said, wait, where does Congress get the power to do that? And Congress said, well, we're just enforcing people's religious free exercise rights. And the Supreme Court said, you don't enforce people's rights by changing the meaning of the right. Similarly, you don't enforce the Second Amendment right, which undoubtedly exists under the Heller decision, 2008, which said you've got a right to handgun for self-defense, you've got a rifle for purposes of hunting and recreation. But you don't extend those rights, change the meaning of those rights in the name of the Second Amendment, and then say that's where Congress gets its power. On that theory, the Supreme Court said in the RFRA case, striking down the Religious Freedom Restoration Act as it applies to states, the court said there would be no limit at all to federal power, and that can't be right. My friends celebrated yesterday having passed an unconstitutional bill. Unconstitutional. We have no power to trample the handiwork of the states all over the country. The state legislatures have the power under the 10th Amendment, and Congress lacks the power in Article 1 to define what concealed carry policy is going to be in the states. That's up to the states. So if they want to become the absolute enemies of the state legislatures and state power and state rights, be my guest. But what they've got is an unconstitutional piece of legislation as well as a deeply dangerous and ill thought out piece of legislation. And the last thing I just want to say about it is, like almost everything else they bring to us now, there were no hearings on it. Now think about that. Here we are, one of the greatest legislative bodies on the planet Earth. Abraham Lincoln sat in this body. John F. Kennedy sat in this body. Some of the greatest legislators who ever existed were here, and they are passing bills without so much as a single hearing. They just bring it up for a vote. So we whip out our phones, and we're trying to Google to find out about the issue. That's how I found out, for example, that more than 1,100 people carrying concealed carry weapons had committed homicides, or mass shootings, or killing of police, or suicides with their guns. And now they want open season. If you want to allow anybody in your state to get a concealed carry weapon, be our guest. Don't impose that rule on the people of Maryland. We don't want it. Thank you very much. We've already decided what we've got. And that's true of state legislatures all across the land. Their so-called reciprocity legislation is actually a demolition of reciprocity because lots of states have entered into reciprocal agreements that will be extinguished by their law. So without so much as a hearing, without any real debate or discussion, without them even realizing that they're violating the Constitution, they go ahead and pass this law. All right. That, of course, is just a distraction from the main order of business this month, which is demolition of America's middle class. And I'm sorry to put it in such cogent and compressed terms, but there's no other way to describe what the New York Times calls the worst piece of tax legislation ever introduced in the history of our country. Now, America's gotten the point about the GOP tax plan. People know it's highway robbery. People know it's a mugging of the working class and the middle class by the largest corporations and the richest people in the country. They know it's an outrageous decision to drive the country into $1.5 trillion more deficit, more debt, all to enrich the robber barons and the cyber barons of our time. They want to cut corporate taxes from 35% to 20% at a time of record corporate profits. And why? Why would you do that? They say that if we bestow this extraordinary windfall, bonus, present on corporate America, that somehow we're going to get more jobs out of it. But wait a second. We're in a time of record corporate profits right now. If all they needed was more profits, more dividends to create jobs, then we'd be seeing them right now. And we're in a time of economic growth. And any economist you ask who's not in the pay of the proponents will tell you it's a deranged thing to do, to cut corporate taxes at a time of record corporate profits. Why would we do that? They say it'll lead to economic development. Nonsense. Show me one example where trickle-down economics has ever worked. It doesn't work for a very simple reason. Very simple. You give more money to people at the top of society, they pocket it. They send it overseas to their Swiss bank accounts or to the Cayman Islands or more yachts. That's what they do with it. If you want economic growth, you do what Franklin D. Roosevelt did. You invest in the middle class. You invest in working people. Business growth comes from demand, and demand comes from a strong middle class that's able to buy stuff. You starve the middle class, there's no demand. The rich take their money and they park it overseas. That's what our oligarchs do. That's what the Russian oligarchs do. That's how Donald Trump has stayed in business. The Russian oligarchs have been renting out his condos and offices in the Trump Tower in New York and coming to the Trump Hotel. They've got their surplus profits they're exporting from Russia going right into the Trump enterprises. And our oligarchs do the exact same thing. You want real growth, you want strong growth, and you want fairness, you want a democratic society, you invest in the middle class, not the largest corporations, not the wealthiest people in the country. Now, there's a strong link here to our campaign finance regime. And again, every public opinion poll shows Americans know it. You think you can fool the American people? You cannot fool the American people. You cannot. Americans know this tax bill is a great deal if you've got your own lobbyist. It's a great deal if you've got your own political action committee. Great deal. If you're in the Trump cabinet, it's going to be perfect for you. And if your last name is Trump, this is utopia. This is absolute utopia. But if you don't have your own PAC, if you don't have your own lobbyist, watch out. Watch out in this bill. The Boston Globe, Annie Linsky had a great article with the title, "The Koch brothers and their friends want President Trump's tax cut very badly." Quotes Tim Phillips, president of Americans for Prosperity, a Koch group, saying, "It's the most significant federal effort we've ever taken on." Congratulations to the Koch brothers. They're about to get their own signature tax bill. And all the GOP politicians are saying the same thing in the newspapers. You can just check it out. They say the same thing. We're calling up the millionaires and billionaires for campaign contributions, and they say, you deliver us that tax bill first. You get nothing from us until you deliver us that tax plan. You guys haven't done anything in Washington.
Welcome everyone here on Fox 10 News Now, part of Fox10Phoenix.com. There has been a verdict reached in the Philip Brailsford trial. The former Mesa police officer accused of shooting an unarmed man. Been a long, emotional, and complicated murder trial. Now, the fate of an ex-Mesa police officer is in the hands of this jury, and we are awaiting to hear from the jury. We'll have it for you, streamed live right here on News Now. Brailsford is charged with second-degree murder in the January 2016 shooting, death of Daniel Shaver at a Mesa hotel. Brailsford served as a Mesa police officer for about 2 years before he was fired for violations of department policy, including unsatisfactory performance. Just on Tuesday, closing arguments for the trial were wrapped up, but in an unusual move yesterday, the judge called everyone back to the courtroom to hear another round of closing arguments. The state asked for a change in the wording of one of the juror instructions, so the judge had to explain the change, and the attorneys were given time to make another closing argument based on that change. The issue was about the instructions on how to determine if the police shooting was justified. Now, the crux of the issue is whether Brailsford was justified in shooting and killing Daniel Shaver in this particular situation. The jury has to decide if this shooting met certain criteria, a long list of criteria to consider the shooting justified. The instructions are detailed and include wording such as: the defendant must have believed physical force was necessary to protect himself or others from the imminent or apparent imminent use of deadly force. And then the other measure there was: you must measure the defendant's belief according to what a reasonable police officer would believe. The words "according to what a reasonable police officer would believe" was added, meaning the jury is instructed to hold Brailsford to a higher standard than a regular citizen because officers have special training in these situations. We'll continue to wait for a shot inside the courtroom. Verdict moments away. All right, everybody, welcome here to Fox 10 News Now, part of Fox10Phoenix.com, and all our viewers watching live right now on Fox 10 Phoenix Facebook Live. We appreciate everybody joining us here. There has been a verdict reached in the Philip Brailsford trial. The former Mesa police officer accused of shooting an unarmed man back in January of 2016. Now, it's been a long, emotional, and complicated murder trial. It's now the fate of the ex-Mesa police officer Philip Brailsford now in the hands of the jury, and we're going to hear from them moments away once we get the shot of inside the courtroom. Of course, we're going to bring that to you right here. You can see on the bottom video on the bottom right for you, that's right outside of the courtroom. We are expecting family members on both sides to come and speak to the media after the verdict has been read. Obviously, it's a very charged case. Brailsford is charged with second-degree murder in the January 2016 shooting death of Daniel Shaver at a Mesa hotel. Brailsford served as a Mesa police officer for about 2 years before he was fired for violations of department policy, including unsatisfactory performance. On Tuesday, closing arguments for the trial were wrapped up, but in an unusual move, yesterday the judge called everyone back to the courtroom to hear another round of closing arguments. The state asked for a change in the wording of one of the juror instructions, so the judge had to explain the change, and the attorneys were given time to make another closing argument based on that change. The issue was about the instructions on how to determine if the police shooting was justified. Now, the crux of the issue is whether Brailsford was justified in shooting and killing Daniel Shaver in this particular situation. The jury has to decide if the shooting met certain criteria, a long list of criteria to consider the shooting justified. And if you're just joining us here, welcome to the Fox 10 News Now stream. We ask you that you let us know where you are watching from right now. And if you have a prediction, let us know in the comment section what you think this verdict will be. We are just moments away from getting a glimpse inside the courtroom. We were told about 40 minutes ago that a verdict has been reached, and you know they usually give media about 30 to 50 minutes to come on over and get set up and ready for this verdict to be read. The state pointed out that 5 other police officers did not fire or use deadly force, asserting that those other officers on the scene acted reasonably and Brailsford was not acting reasonably. The jury has several options. If Brailsford is found guilty of second-degree murder, he faces a maximum sentence of 25 years in prison. If found not guilty, the jury can also find Brailsford guilty or not guilty of the lesser charge of manslaughter. Now, the jury deliberated for a couple of hours on yesterday, and they had today as well, and they reached a verdict about 40 minutes ago. You're watching live right here on the Fox 10 News Now stream. All right, folks, and as you can see, we do have that shot now inside of the courtroom. We are going to take it full once they are just moments away from announcing that verdict. Thanks to everybody always for joining us here. You're either on fox10phoenix.com or Fox 10 Phoenix Facebook Live. If you haven't already done so, now would be a good opportunity to hit that share button. That way you're going to alert all your friends and family, especially if they've been following this case closely. They know that the verdict is coming, and you can alert them there just by hitting that share button. We really appreciate everybody joining us here on the stream. Like we were talking about just moments ago, there are several options for the jurors here. Obviously, if he is found guilty of second-degree murder, he faces a maximum sentence of 25 years in prison. Now, they can also go of a charge of not guilty. The jury can find Brailsford guilty or not guilty of the lesser charge of manslaughter as well. So we are going to see how this all plays out in a matter of moments. We appreciate you guys all being here, and we're going to see the verdict in just a moment. right, folks, it looks like we got the shot of inside. Again, they just have the seal on right now, so we'll take you back inside there. You can see in the bottom right corner of your screen, still waiting for this verdict to be read. This is an incident that happened January of 2016, and you're taking a look at some of the body cam footage on the left there. We are going to see what the jury has decided here in this case. We got almost 2,000 of you watching here on Facebook, and you guys continue to predict and let us know what you guys are thinking. Thank you for your predictions there, and if you're just joining us, continue to let us know not only where you're watching from, but how do you think this case is going to go down. We're going to know in a little bit here. And remember, if you're on Fox 10 Phoenix YouTube page, why don't you hit that subscribe button as well, too. That way you'll always be in the know of when we are streaming here worldwide for you on the Fox 10 News Now stream. For those of you maybe just coming onto the stream and maybe you don't know all the particulars here of the case, Philip Brailsford charged with second-degree murder back for the January 2016 shooting at this Mesa Hotel. You are seeing some of that body cam footage there on the left. He would face up to anywhere from 10 to 25 years in prison if convicted of the charge. Brailsford is 27 years old. He testified about his split-second decision to shoot the unarmed man after responding to a call that someone at the hotel was pointing a gun out of a window. Now think about that. Now that was the call that officers did hear. So when you hear a call like that, you're going to be amped up from the beginning here. It's going to be interesting to see how the jury came together on this verdict. And then, you know, once that verdict is reached, it's always interesting. Will any of the jurors want to speak to the media? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So we'll see if they want to do there. And then we also have a shot outside of the camera setup, just in case if any members of the family on either side want to talk to the media right after this decision is made. Brailsford served as a Mesa police officer for about 2 years before he was fired for violations of department policy, including unsatisfactory performance. We're continuing to wait for that live verdict here. You're going to see it right here on News Now. We will stream it for you right here. You can see it bottom right corner of your screen. That's the seal inside the courtroom. And then the other two videos are videos of the past there. That's Brailsford walking in at one moment. Then also the body cam video from that night, January 2016. So we are here watching for you, and we will continue to wait here with you for this verdict.
For those of you just joining us on Facebook and YouTube, Philip Brailsford is charged with second-degree murder in the January 2016 shooting at a Mesa hotel. If convicted, he would face 10 to 25 years in prison. The 27-year-old has testified about his split-second decision to shoot the unarmed man after responding to a call that someone at the hotel was pointing a gun out of a window. Brailsford served as a Mesa policeman for about 2 years before he was fired for violations of departmental policy, including unsatisfactory performance. If you're with us, feel free to share your predictions on this case. Tell us where you're watching from. You're looking at body cam video on the left of the screen. We have the Arizona seal in the courtroom on the bottom right. And you will hear and see the verdict live here.
Thanks everybody here, not only on fox10phoenix.com, but our Facebook page as well. More than 700 comments already, and those continue to climb up as you are letting us know what you think will be the verdict here for Philip Brailsford, that ex-Mesa police officer. So continue to let us know how you think this case will go. Some of you are saying justice for Daniel. Others are saying that the former officer will be found not guilty. So lots of mixed opinions there, obviously, and we are going to see just who is going to be right any moment now, as this verdict has been reached about 45 minutes ago. We learned of it 45 minutes ago, and we're going to continue to see how this is all going to play out. This is all stemming from that January 2016 incident at a Mesa hotel. Daniel Shaver shot to death. All right there, folks, and for those of you wondering, sometimes the audio is going a little bit in and out. Don't worry, there is nothing wrong. We just sometimes need a little break there, but you will have full audio once the verdict is going to be read there inside the courtroom. Right now, they are still waiting for all the lawyers to get there, as well as family members on both sides. That's why they usually wait about 30 to 45 minutes. Sometimes on the higher profile cases, it could be hours from a time when a verdict is reached to the time it is read. If you think about it, back in the O.J. Simpson case, back in 1995, a verdict was reached in late afternoon and it wasn't read until the next morning. But we're going to go now inside the courtroom here. We see Brailsford. Let's listen in, everybody.
you very much, Names. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the jury has indicated they have reached a verdict. I just want to make sure, well, first let's go on the record. This is the matter of State of Arizona versus Phil Mitchell, Brailsford, CR 26-0047. As I was saying, I just want to make sure that we have everyone here, families, victims, friends, not waiting for anyone else. Correct. Okay. All right. In the court, we note the appearance of Ms. Charbel for the state, or rather for the defendant. Victims are present. Mr. Elias from the county attorney's office as well. And the victims are present. We'll bring them through. All right, thank you very much. You may be seated. All right, the record will now reflect the presence of the jury, and the court understands the jury has reached the verdict. Would the jury foreperson please identify herself? All right, and the jury has reached the verdict, is that correct? If you would hand the verdict forms and any unanswered question forms to the bench.
Duly impaneled and sworn in the above entitled action, and upon our oaths, do find the defendant Philip Mitchell Brailsford on the charge of count 1, second-degree murder, not guilty. Signed, foreperson, juror number 3. Is this your true verdict? So say you one and all. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Mr. Counsel.
All right, folks, so you are watching here live part of the Fox10Phoenix.com. We just heard Philip Brailsford found not guilty of second-degree murder. We are going to see what the judge is going to say next here, as it looks like they just went into conference right now. We are going to continue to listen and wait for the judge to make another announcement.
Sworn in the above entitled action, and upon our oaths do find the defendant Philip Mitchell Brailsford on the lesser included offense of reckless manslaughter, not guilty. Signed, foreperson, juror number 3. Is this your true verdict, so say you one and all?
Yes.
Does anyone want to hold the jury? Hold the jury. Prosecutors requested. Jury be called.
Juror number 1, are these your true verdicts? Juror number 1?
Yes.
Juror number 3, are these your true verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 5, are these your true verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 6, are these your true verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 7, are these your true verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 8, are these your true verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 9, are these your true verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 10, are these your true verdicts?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, on behalf of the people of Maricopa County and the state of Arizona, I want to thank you for your service in this matter. You've been very patient, and we appreciate your service. As we conclude today, we're going to be excusing you from your service. The admonition will be lifted. You're free to talk about the case or not talk about the case as you wish. And that's your decision, and people will honor it. So again, on behalf of Maricopa County and Superior Court, thank you, and you are excused. The admonition is lifted at this time.
All rise, please.
All right, thank you. You may be seated. The jury has returned the verdicts on the principal charge of second-degree murder, not guilty, and the lesser included offense of reckless manslaughter, not guilty. Counsel for the state, Michelle Duffy, for your participation in the matter. Mr. Loretta, your participation in the matter. The charges are dismissed by reason of the verdict, and anything else for the state?
No.
Anything else for the state? No. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We stand adjourned.
All rise.
All right, folks, if you caught that and maybe in the middle or you're just coming on into the end, you're watching here live on the Fox 10 and News Now stream, part of fox10phoenix.com, and on our Facebook Live. Philip Brailsford, the former Mesa police officer, found not guilty of second-degree murder, and he was also found not guilty of the lesser charge of manslaughter.
So now what we're showing you all is outside of the courthouse, where sometimes you'll hear family members of both, either or neither side. Sometimes nobody feels like talking after a heated, emotional case such as this one. Sometimes lawyers will speak on the behalf. Sometimes jurors are willing to talk. Sometimes they're not.
these days.
You all will be hearing the audio go in and out as we're waiting for people to leave the courthouse and possibly speak with us. Now we do have sound on what you're looking at now, but we're just taking it in and out while we wait for people. Again, if you're just joining us, my name is Pilar with Fox News Now. I used to work in Texas and I covered a lot of murder and manslaughter trial, and these are really, you don't know what to expect. Sometimes the lawyers want to talk, sometimes the family wants to talk, sometimes the jurors want to talk, and sometimes nobody wants to talk.
You all would like my card? Or do you need my card at all?
I might.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I'm good whenever you guys are ready. Just say when everybody's ready.
I'm state your name and the association.
Nate Gaffert with the Mesa Police Association. I am the president of the Mesa Police Association. Spelling of my last name is Gaffvert. Everybody ready? We are relieved, yet not surprised of the not guilty verdict. The jury's short deliberation directly reflects the lack of evidence against Mr. Brailsford. We are overwhelmed with emotions and have continued faith that the justice system will not be directed by political pressure, but only by a clear application of law and facts. The Honorable Judge George Foster held his courtroom to the highest regard, only with the interest of justice in mind. This case should have never been charged by Maricopa County Attorney Bill Montgomery. Not only did it damage a promising young officer's career, it gave false hope to the family of Daniel Shaver. Instead of having the difficult conversation that a lawful use of force occurred, Mr. Montgomery led them to believe it was unjust. All involved parties were then forced into a very long, emotional, and expensive trial. This was a lawful use of force within what Mr. Brailsford was trained to respond to. Whenever there is a loss of life, it is a terrible thing, but that does not mean charges should be filed. Citizens of the United States, which includes police officers, should not be prosecuted based on perception and public appeal. We are a nation of law. Emotion and empathy cannot carry the day. We would like to thank the jurors for remaining objective and ultimately acquitting Mr. Brailsford. A decision of this magnitude does not come lightly and speaks volumes for what Mr. Brailsford has endured. The Mesa Police Association will continue to support Mr. Brailsford throughout his termination appeal process. Thank you. I'll try to answer any questions you guys may have.
You weren't surprised. Why not?
We weren't surprised because pretty much every use of force subject matter expert that reviewed this case absolutely said he acted consistently with his training. The officers and humans in general cannot react fast enough when presented with a deadly threat. Contrary to what was stated in court, police officers do not have to wait to actually see the firearm, as we've seen when the two Chandler officers that got shot last year. The amount of time it takes to react, we can't compare to it. By the time officers can react, shots will be fired. This is how officers are trained. This is based on cases, it's based on facts, it's based on studies, it's based on the loss of police officers' lives. That's why officers are trained this way.
Why couldn't tasing have been an option?
The taser at that point with somebody who is potentially armed if they're carrying a gun is not an option. The taser basically would cause all muscles to contract, and if Mr. Shaver had been holding a firearm with his finger on the trigger, a very strong possibility it would have pulled the trigger just based on the clenching of the tasing. And quite frankly, we're taught in training that we cannot respond to someone armed with a firearm in a deadly force scenario and and basically deploy less lethal, because that will most likely not stop the attack from happening. And that's what deadly force is, the highest use of force, and that's ultimately what we have to use when engaged with the threat of deadly force.
How's Brailsford handling this whole tragedy? How's he dealing with it?
He, throughout the almost 2 years that he's been going through this, he's had a very solid foundation of family and friends, and he's an oak. He has endured most police officers' worst nightmare, but he's done an amazing job, and he's held his head high. He's always felt, and we've fully supported him from the very beginning, that his actions were in accordance with not only state but federal laws and training.
Well, how about grief? Has grief been part of his journey as well?
Absolutely. Whenever an officer is engaged in a critical incident where there is a loss of life, they carry that for the rest of their lives. This is a situation that not only Mr. Brailsford, but all the other officers that were in the hallway that night, including the female that was in the room, they will never forget what they saw, what they heard, and Mitch is going to carry this burden on his shoulders for the rest of his life. Nothing will ever shut it off. It will never go away.
Can you play a role in helping him get his job back? Is that an option, getting his job back at Mesa Police?
The appeals process was filed shortly after he was separated from the city of Mesa. That is just, once he catches his breath, that is definitely a conversation that we'll be having down the road.
Are you reaching out to the Shaver family?
Not personally, but we do express any emotional support we can to the Shaver family. The Mesa Police Association was there during the trial for every bit of it. It was emotional for us. It was clearly emotional for the family. We absolutely feel for them. Again, with the loss of any life, there are loved ones, there are family members that had to sit through and watch this horror unfold in front of their eyes. So we absolutely feel for them, and we are sending our thoughts and prayers to Mr. Shaver's family.
I'm sorry, can you spell your name for us, please?
Sure. Nate Gaffert, Gaffert. V-E-R-T. V as in Victor, E-R-T as in Tom.
And you are the...
I'm the president of the Mesa Police Association.
Thank you. Thanks, Nate.
Okay, everyone, this is Pilar with Fox News Now. There you have it, the verdict in the Philip Brailsford trial. Not guilty on second-degree murder and not guilty on the lesser charge of manslaughter. We are going to sign off for the evening, but if you are still watching us on YouTube and you have not yet, feel free to hit the subscribe button, and you will always be alerted when we go live on Fox News Now, and appreciate it if you watched us on Facebook today.